Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be talking about the Cuban melodious finch or Funipara canora. Now some of you will be thinking, why Funipara canora? Well, it used to be Tiaris canorus, but in 2014 the name changed due to scientific research they did, and now the only bird left in the Tiaris genus is the Tiaris olivaceus. And these ones got their own genus, namely Funipara. So now the name is Funipara canorus. Now what we'll be talking about today is how to ring them, because I still have some nests outside. So we'll be ringing 4 youngsters in the outside aviary. And then I will be talking about which bird to use for a show, in which cage to use for a show, how to train them, and how to prepare them. To start with this bird, for example, it's already obvious that its nails are too long, so those will need to be trimmed, and I will be showing that also. But first, let's start by ringing the youngsters in the outside aviary, and then we'll come back to this. So now we will be ringing the other Funipara canora or Cuban melodious finches, which are luckily in my second aviary here. I also have another nest, but they're not ready to be rung, and another nest I already rung a few days ago. But I can show these. So I have this little cup with some nest material. The rings are in there, and so I can put the youngsters in there and keep them warm. Now they're in this nest. Normally they don't use a plastic nest, but build one themselves in the plants or something. Now you see, here they are. And we'll need both hands for this, so I'll take them out and then you'll be seeing it soon enough. So, like I did in previous videos, you take the bird between your fingers like this, and you take the 3 front toes at this, like this little joint on the foot, between your thumb and index finger, and you take a ring, without nest material of course, and you try to slide it over the front toe and then the other toes right after. So like this, and you need to be very gentle with these birds because they're very small, as you can see. That's also why I wait a little bit longer to ring them. I ring them with a 2.3 millimeter, and these animals are now like 10 days old, maybe even 11. And I put them back in the nest. Because why do I wait so long? Because if they're too small, it's very tricky, and you can hurt the bird. And well, I have quite thick fingers, so it's not easy. Like this. So again, three front toes through the ring, and then you see it's tricky because they pull back their 2 side toes. I don't know the correct anatomical name for it, so I just call them the side toes. But you put then the first finger in, first toe in, and the other 2 as far back as you can, and you pull it through gently and put this back, and you see that it's like it can move, it's not stuck or anything. Why do I use the nest material, by the way, is to keep them warm. Because if they would just be like on the plastic or just on a cold surface, it wouldn't be very, very good. But as you can see, this bird is like a day younger, and there's a significant size difference on the toes. So that's why you really have to be careful with it. It's so small. Some of you also might think, why do all the effort to ring them? Because with these birds it's not obligatory. But I breed so many. Now this year I only have 3 breeding pairs of them. But in general, I think in total I have about 40, 50 in the collection now of these. So, and in this year, this is like 25 youngsters I've had so far this year. So you want to know from which couple they are. And also if you want to do shows and you want to play in, well, in the C series you can play whatever you want. But in all the other series, they need to be ringed with your rings, with the correct size, the appropriate size. And that's why I ring them, and also to identify them, to know from which year they are, if you want to sell them. There are just a lot of different reasons why you want to ring them. Voila. And now you see they're in the nest and try to, well, now he's trying to crawl out, which you don't want to have happen. Just like pull them in. Sometimes I push the nest in a bit so they're like deeper in, because they have the tendency to build very undeep nests, and then youngsters can fall out. People sometimes think it's the parents throwing them out. That's not the case. Usually, at least, they just fall out if the nest is undeep, or the eggs fall out if it's undeep. And I'm trying to, well, there you have them, father and mother of my Cuban melodious finches. So now let's go inside and talk about preparing these birds for the show and what to do with them. So these here are my training cages. These are about the same size as the show cage. And the difference is, well, that they have a sliding door in the front. I can adjust where I put the branches for the birds to sit on. For example, the larger birds, I do not want them to touch with their tail against the side, because if they do touch with their tail against the side, then it will break off or twist or whatever, and you do not want it for a show. Now what I do, I put the food here, which is annoying sometimes, because as you see in this, the birds sometimes poop in their food, which isn't very good. And the water I put on the right. In a show cage I do the opposite, because that's easier. Now what have I done here is there were normal drawers in here, but I put wire in it and just newspaper on the bottom. So if they poop, they do not sit in their poop and they do not get filthy, and it's cleaner and it's more hygienic. Disadvantage is they can twist their tails in the wire and break off some feathers. That's a disadvantage, but overall I'm quite happy with how they look. Now don't worry, those birds aren't in these cages the entire time. They're only in here for training, and so they get used to the cage size, and they do not stress out on a show. Now in the show cage, of course, birds are one bird a cage. Here sometimes there are 2 in a cage to keep each other company, especially like these ones are my black-faced grassquits, my black-breasted grassquits, and they're a little bit more, not weak, but more stressy. So I do not want them to stress out that much in the beginning, so they're with 2 in a cage. Now, but today we were talking mostly about these ones, the Fonipara canora, or the melodious, Cuban melodious finch, or the Cuban grassquits. well, they have a lot of names for this bird, but in general I'll just call them my cubans, my small cubans. See, that's a female. Now what we have here is a show cage. Now there's not sand in it yet, but I've put white sand at the bottom for the shows. Now we'll see here why this is a good show bird. To begin with, this is a B bird, which means it's older than a year. Yearlings are A birds, then we have the B birds, which are older than a year, except for parakeets, which can play 2 years in the A series, but that's not the point here, because I don't have parakeets. Then we have a C, which are unringed birds, or birds that aren't yours or not bred by you or whatever. So the free series, so to speak. And then we have the D and E. D is 4 birds playing together, and the E is 2 birds playing together. All same gender, same look, except for birds, well, you can tell the difference, of course, between the genders. Then it's just, then it doesn't matter. But now this bird, as I said before, its nails need to be trimmed because they're too long. Also for the show, you see this bird has a pink ring. This is how I know which lineage it is from, without all the time needing to check the ring on its foot and catching them out, which reduces stress in the end. But for a show, those rings need to be removed. So I will do that right in front of the show. Right now I will just trim back its nails, polish its beak a bit so it's nice and smooth, and it's all just, well, just taking care of the bird and making sure it looks good. Now, so when you trim the nails, I keep the bird in my hand like this. So you put its head through here, with some fingers, you hold it like this. You take its foot and you hold it like this. So the bird can twist. Because if you only hold the foot and it twists around, it probably can twist itself loose, or you might break its foot. That's of course something you do not want to happen. Now you can also see the beak. Sometimes the beak needs to be trimmed. Well, in this case that's not really necessary, but the upper beak is a little bit over where the bottom beak is, or jaw is, or what you call it. So I will be trimming it a little bit. And then the nails, you see, they're way too long. Now, for the sake of this video and filming, I cannot hold this in front of a light, but normally you should keep this in front of a light and then you can see the veins in the nail. So let's start with the beak. Now for filming, because I'm only alone, I had to place my phone in like quite a difficult position. But it'll work. So you put the trimmer on the beak and you just see where it is too long and just cut it. That's it. And you can also polish it a bit with some sanding paper, which is like P600 sanding paper. So, and afterwards you can sand it a bit, make it even. This is like P600 sanding paper, so it's very, very, very smooth sanding paper. Just have to be careful. Do not do this too much, especially on the upper parts of the beak, like here, right here. Wait, can I show it? Right here against the head, because then if you do it too much, you can get it bleeding. But now it's smooth, and its beak is trimmed and taken care of. This is the same for like birds who have like a seriously overgrown beak. This is the same thing you do with them, only because, well, health issues are of course a lot worse with those birds if it's seriously overgrown. And it's better to prevent seriously overgrowth than needing to repair the damage, of course. But that's how you could do it in the case it's necessary. Now with the nails. It is normally better to hold it against the light, because then you can see the veins in the nails. But in general, if you do not cut too far, like here, it will not start bleeding and you're safe. Like this. But if you're not sure, hold the foot against the light and you will see the veins in the nails, so you cannot cut too far. The reason also why in most of my cages I use branches of different sizes and natural branches is because the nails are trimmed naturally and you do not have to do this. But in some birds, they just have the tendency of overgrowing their nails. So this is one foot, then the other foot, and then we're done. Now I just use these cutters. You could also use scissors like this, but I prefer these ones. And you also notice maybe I hold on to the bird quite firmly, but I do not squeeze it. But just you need to hold it firmly, because if it is starting to twist, it could twist itself loose, and if you hold on to its foot too hard, you can break it, and that's something you absolutely do not want. Now what I also sometimes do, especially with older birds, they sometimes need it. You see their foot, it's like, well, this bird doesn't really have it, but some birds they just get a little bit, well, like old wife's hands or something, and they need some maintenance. So what I do is I just use some Vaseline, put it on there, and then loose skin, loose scales, they all come loose, the ring gets cleaned, it's just healthy. So if there are some mites in the beak, then they are killed because they suffocate in this cream, this Vaseline. It's all smooth again, you polish it with the sanding paper, so now it's smooth again, it can heal, and this bird is ready to go. Now this is, for example, well, it wasn't really very bad with this bird, but if you ever have a bird which is like overgrown nails, overgrown beak, mites on the beak, it's generally the same thing you do, but like I said, it's much better to prevent it and to just check on your birds regularly and to, well, just take good care of them. Now I will put him back in the cage, and now you see he's a little bit roughed up. Now what I also do in these cages, I could hang up a bath here, I could do it, and they can go bath the entire time, and I sometimes do it. But what I like to do more is use these just for plants, to just spray them wet. Some birds don't like it, but most of them do. What also helps with this is I do it regularly, like 3-4 times a day, and the bird gets calm of it. They like can take a bath and they get calm, they just sit on their branches in the cage. And it's a way of like training them for shows, because it makes them, well, less stressy and used to people passing and all of that. So I will show you now what I just do, is like take this and I just spray it. And you see, the bird doesn't mind at all, he's taking his bath. He can wash his feathers, put it all back in its place, and he's ready to go. Now, like for example, I will show you this female. You see, she doesn't jump away, she doesn't move from branch to branch, she really enjoys it. And if you go, for example, to my Java sparrows, well, the video is not about it, but we'll do it anyway, and I'll just see put their food up again. Is you see they're quite stressy birds. The moment I start spraying them, you see they stand still and they really enjoy it. They really calm down, they go easy, they start washing themselves. Especially Java sparrows, they really enjoy washing themselves. So I really overdo it with these birds, making them wet, because they really like it. And you see they're not stressed out anymore, they're relaxing, they're on the ground, taking a bath, and it makes them settle down way more, which is really, really nice. Now, to end this with, this is, for example, a seabird. Well, the Cuban it is, the diamond firetail isn't, it's an A bird, really promising bird. But this Cuban finch is like one of the first ones I've ever bred, when I even didn't ring them yet. So this bird is like, I think by now it's 8 or 9 years old. And since last year I'm taking him to shows, because he's a very, very beautiful bird. And he isn't fit to breed anymore, because for some reason he gets fat way too fast. So that's also why I'm keeping in a cage like this for a longer period of time. It's quite counterintuitive, because it's a smaller cage, so you think he gets more fat, but I can ration him, and I can, well, normally I do ad libitum feeding, which means like you feed them a whole bunch and they just eat whenever and whatever they want. In this cage I use it because also the female gets fat easily. I give them a little bit of food, make sure it's gone, and then I'll give them more food, but just enough that they're like on a diet to, well, reduce their fat bellies. Which is even like, I do not even have to blow away its feathers, you can see its belly hanging lower, it's quite a fat bird. Now, like now, when I start spraying them, you just see it, the diamond firetail really enjoys it, this one doesn't like it. So that's what you get when a bird doesn't like it, it just tries to go away, but normally they start watching themselves. And you see the diamond firetail really enjoys it. But this is a seabird, so he's going to show. Then we have a few females. They also not go to the shows all the time, because like I've more than enough birds, so 1 week it's one bird and it's the other bird. It's the one that's good at the moment for show that goes, and so I do not stress them out too much, and they don't get tired too much. But so that's how I do it. Like I started a video with, so this is my yellow-faced grasskit female from this year. This is a bird that will go to the shows when she's ready, and this is, as I said, a Tiaris olivaceus. So that's the only one still in the Tiaris genus. Now we see here the other two species, so the Funipara canora, which used to be Tiaris canorus, which is now Funipara canora. And then in the back, it used to be Tiaris bicolor, now it is called Melanospitza bicolor. So that's the black-faced grasskit, which also, or black-breasted grasskit, which also changed genus and in the same genus as the Melanospitza ricardsoni, or I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the St. Lucia grasskit, which is an extremely endangered species. So they are in the same genus now. And there were two other species in the Tiaris genus which also moved to other genuses. But so that's a little bit of the explanation about it, and it happened in 2014 with a scientific study, a genetic study, which made people realize they're not so closely related after all. Nevertheless, they are close related animals. So that's about that. Now, I do hope you enjoyed this video and learned something about it. Please leave a comment down below to say what you thought about this video. Please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.